Hey guys, this is Matt from Street Faction. Let's go over your S14 V2 door card installation. We'll go over all of the tools required and then the individual pieces and hardware that's going to be included with your order. So let's get to it. You're going to need a 1/2-inch cordless drill, metric Allen wrench set, a small screwdriver and pick set, 12, 10, and 8mm wrench, a 10mm socket on a ratchet, and a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Everything from here over to the right is what will be included in your order. So these switches would apply if you ordered the power speaker or the power version. This would be used to mount the passenger window switch. These are spacers for the air inlet seal for our V2 door card. This is your full hardware pack, your rib nut installation kit, your thread inserts, 2 stickers, and 2 nylon pull straps. So let's go over the removal of the OEM panel. So this one for the most part has already been disassembled. There's going to be a fastener here on the rear of the door that you need to remove, 3 Phillips head screws on the bottom, and then 1 Phillips head screw in here, and another Phillips inside this handle pocket. So for this panel, most of them have already been removed. The only one that hasn't is this one up here. Once you get this screw out and this screw out, you can pop out these pieces, disconnect your harness for the window switch, pull out on your door handle, and then slide this piece off. From there, you can start to pop off the panel from the bottom. And lift it up. So the next step to get the door ready for the panel would be to take one of your small thread inserts, the little rectangle piece, and you're going to pop it into this rectangular hole on the front edge. Once that clips in, the next hole you're going to be drilling for the door handle strap is going to be this one here. Directly under the release handle is going to be a small hole. We're going to enlarge this one in order to be able to install a rib nut. Alright, so let's get ready to drill this hole. So if your car still has this OEM little protective cover on, you can go ahead and slowly peel it down just enough for you to gain access to this hole. And let's go ahead and enlarge this one. Once you got the hole drilled out, you can use a file to get rid of any burrs. As much as possible for you to be able to get the rib nut to sit pretty flat. And then the rib nut tool, once you remove the masking tape, will be assembled as this one is. You have your bolt, your washer, a nut, and then a conical washer. You're going to thread the rib nut onto this assembly. And using a 12mm wrench, you're going to hold the nut stationary, and you're going to use a 10mm ratchet and socket to tighten it, and it's going to draw the rib nut and cause it to compress, kind of like a rivet. So at this stage, you're going to be taking your M6x16 black flanged bolt, feeding it through the pull strap, and you're going to thread it into your rib nut. You're going to want the strap to be folded over the top, and then go ahead and snug it down. From there, in order to gain access on this plastic sheet, we're going to go ahead and cut a little bit of a slit to feed it through. So the next step is going to be to dismantle and disassemble the OEM door panel. The parts that we're going to be reusing are the window switches, the bezel here, the entire air duct that runs inside of the panel, and then this seal. Alright, so the first thing we're going to remove is the window switch off of this bezel. There's a couple of tabs, one on each side. So use your pick. You're going to gently lift up on the tab to get the tab out of it, and then flip it around and do the same thing. And then you pop the switch out. So this is the only piece that we actually need right now. So at this point, we're going to start disassembling the duct and the bezel. There's a total of 5 screws holding it in place. 3 are holding this duct, one here, another one here, and another one back here. These 2 are holding the trim piece to the duct. So let's go ahead and remove all 5 of those. Alright, so this next step is the most tedious. You're going to want to take your time. This is where the pick set comes into play. So I'm using one that has a sharp point, and then I'm using a flathead tip. So I'm going to use both in combination to lift up on these small tabs that are holding onto a couple of clips. This is what's holding the 2 pieces together. So I'm going to start off with the inside here. There's a little bit of a slot opening. So I'm going to lift this one up and then get my flathead underneath it. And then you'll feel it release that. And once you successfully release it, you'll see that that tab stays lifted. And then we'll go ahead and work on the next one. You don't want to break these tabs because these are the only ones that keep the bezel attached firmly to the duct. So take your time on this step and you'll get it off successfully. So these are the top 2. Now we're going to move on to the bottom 2. The same procedure. I'm using the pointed tool to give me a grip on the tab. Then I'm using my flathead to get in between the 2 and start to separate it. I'm pushing with my left thumb very lightly, and you can see this one's separated now. Now we have one more to get into. And that's it. Once you have that released, your duct will come free and the bezel on the back side will be free. So for a little bit of detail, these are what the tabs look like. There's a total of 4 of them, and those are clipping onto our duct here and here. The last piece we're going to remove off of the OEM panel is going to be this air inlet seal. This one's just held in using pressure from the seal itself. So you just want to grab a corner, press it downward, and then pull it out. At this point, OEM door panel is done. You don't need to keep it anymore. Those are all the parts we're going to be pulling off of it. So the first part we're going to be installing is the air inlet seal. This is where you're going to be using this 1/4" spacer that's included. This spacer goes in between this gap here, and it's to make up for the thickness difference between our V2 and the OEM panel. So you're going to want to install this into this opening here. So start off with one corner and then start to press it into place. Just like that. Now to install it in the panel, this rounded side is going to go towards the outside and the square side is going to go towards the inside. And you're going to want to put our V2 between the back side and our spacer in the middle. So start off with either side, pull the seal over, and then start to work it around the perimeter. And that's it. That's the seal installed. Next step is to install the OEM air duct onto our bosses. So for this step, you're going to need 3 of the M4 screws that are provided and a 2.5mm Allen. So let's go ahead and get this duct in place and then start to thread it in. Go ahead and thread them in slowly, and you're just going to very lightly snug them down. You're just trying to eliminate some of the play so that it makes it a little bit easier to assemble the bezel onto the air ducts clips. So I'm snugging it down until it makes contact and then backing it off a little bit. So at this point we can take our OEM bezel and we're going to carefully align these 4 tabs onto the OEM duct here. So make sure the top is in place and the bottom is in place, and start to click it in place. Alright, once you have all 4 of those clips attached, go ahead and snug these down with the 2.5mm Allen wrench, and we're ready for the next step. Next, you're going to be installing the original screws that used to hold the bezel onto the duct into these 2 locations. Be careful not to over tighten these as you're threading into a plastic part. So now we're going to be assembling the OEM switch into our switch guide. So it's a 2-piece construction. We're going to start off with this one here. And what you're going to want to do is slide it into place and then spread our guide and allow the switch to drop in, and that'll keep it in place securely. From there, there's counterbores here and bosses here. You're going to want to just assemble them together like so. And then we can start to attach it to the outside of this panel using the longer M5 bolts and the M5 lock nuts. For this, you're going to need a 4mm Allen wrench and an 8mm wrench. So let's go ahead and get that going. Completed panel should look just like this. Got your seal installed, bezel in place, duct is fastened, and then your switch is mounted. This particular S14 is a base model, so it doesn't have power locks, so it would be missing this switch here. But in most cases, most S14s do have power locks, so it would clip in just like the Windows switch. Alrighty, so we finally made it to the fun part. The V2 panel is fully assembled. You have your thread insert installed, your door strap installed. Last step would be to just throw it on, hook up the harness for the power window switch, slide in the door strap through this slot here, and then we'll start fastening it with the supplied hardware. So let's go ahead and connect the window switch, feed in the door pull, then take one of your 1-inch black screws and then thread it into the center hole on the bottom. This will support most of the weight of the panel. And then come along the rear side. Use your little push tab, your push pin. Slide it into the rear hole. That'll support the weight in the rear. And then let's continue installing the screws along the bottom edge. So all 3 screws along the bottom are the black 1-inch screws. And then on this front hole, you're going to thread another one of the 1-inch screws into the thread insert that you installed previously. And while it's still lightly snug, let's go ahead and install the bezel for the door handle. This one you're going to want to push in and slide it towards the rear. And then using the OEM screw that came out of that location, you're going to thread it in. And at this point, you can admire your hard work. The panel looks really good. The only thing missing in this installation would be the speaker, but that one's pretty straightforward. 4 bolts and nuts holding the speaker in place, connect the harness, and you're good to go. But this is what your V2 should ultimately look like fully installed. So enjoy. So let's go ahead and add the final touch. It's going to be our SF 3D sticker. Go ahead and take one and put it right here. It's a nice badge of display.